Welcome back. I'm John Cardillo in for John Bachman. Joining me now is one of our nation's most famous, or maybe even the most famous, political strategist. Roger Stone has been a political advisor to Donald Trump, and for 30 years has been credited with architecting some of the most successful campaigns, including Donald Trump's successful run in 2016. Roger has also been a political advisor to Presidents Nixon and Reagan. He's also a best-selling author. His latest book, Stone's Rules, is the ultimate guide to success and life in politics. Well, that's at least what Roger says. Roger, great to see a lot going on. But let me ask you first about your book. Why should Joe and Jane America read Stone's Rules?
Well, first of all, let me say thanks. It's great to be here on Newsmax. You know, many Americans don't know the crucial role Newsmax, both the Newsmax TV and the magazine, played in Donald Trump's improbable rise to become president of the United States. Newsmax was one of the first conservative alternative news organizations to realize that Trump had the potential to win and to take his candidacy seriously. So it's great to be with you. This book is a little different than my previous books. I wrote a New York Times bestseller about the assassination of President John F. Kennedy. It was called The Man Who Killed Kennedy, The Case Against LBJ. I used eyewitness evidence, fingerprint evidence, and deep Texas politics to make the case that Johnson had the motive, means, and opportunity to murder John F. Kennedy in the streets of Dallas. I wrote a book that told the truth about Watergate and what a weasel John Dean is, and how his testimony against the president is a lie in many cases, and the other lies he tells about Watergate, and some of the other things you didn't know, like that three of the burglars were on the CIA team and still on the payroll of the CIA at the time of the break-in and reporting to the agency. Interesting things. And then I finally wrote a book on the improbable rise of Donald Trump, the making of the president in 2016, how Donald Trump orchestrated a revolution. This book is more like a handbook, more like a guidebook, the lessons and maxims and rules that I've learned in a 40-year career in the arena. And there's advice on all kinds of things about, food and beverage and how to dress and how to comport yourself and political strategy and internet advertising strategy. It's a pretty good read no matter what your politics.
It's pretty much the guide on how to be your own Roger Stone. So, Roger, has the president ever read any of your books, ever given you feedback on them?
The president very clearly read my book, The Clintons' War on Women. He waved it around at a rally, and he spoke about the book in several interviews, which is why I think I've been targeted by the special counsel. I think this may be special payback from the fact that I exposed the extraordinary corruption of Hillary Clinton and the Clinton campaign and Bill Clinton and so on, and I think that may be an issue. The president loved that book.
All right, Roger, a lot of breaking news, but let's talk about Michael Cohen. Let's play a brief exchange between Donald Trump and Michael Cohen, that tape that was released to CNN. Then I want to discuss it with you.
And you have a woman that doesn't want to see it.
Correct.
So you've been handling it.
Yes, and it's all.
It's been going on for a while.
For about 2-3 weeks now.
All you have to do is delay it for.
Even after that, it's not going to ever be opened. There's no purpose for it. Told you about Charleston. I need to open up a company for the transfer of all of that info regarding our friend David, so that I'm going to do that right away. I've actually come up and I've spoken to Alan Weisselberg about how to set the whole thing up with
So what are we going to pay?
Funding. Yes, and it's all the stuff, because you never know where that company, you never know where he's going to be. Correct. So I'm all over that, and I spoke to Alan about it when it comes time for the financing, which will be.
Listen, what financing?
We'll have to pay you. So
I'll pay the cash.
No. I got no.
All right, Roger, you know both Trump and Cohen personally. You've had many conversations with both men. What is your takeaway? What's your immediate impression about the conversation on that tape?
Here's what's most interesting. John Dean published a book in which he said that he published the transcript of all the Watergate conversations, including all of those between himself and Nixon. The problem is he omitted 3. When I dug the 3 up and I listened to them, they sound just like that, leading the witness. What financing, Trump says? What are you talking about? Cohen is speaking so obliquely to a man who's clearly confused, it's outrageous. But to make the case that that tape proves that the president approved anything specific, information to our friend David, I assume that is a reference to the National Enquirer, but I think that that's another witch hunt. But the National Enquirer is entitled to pay for information and kill it. Editors are entitled to kill stories. It happens every day at the New York Times. So I think it's another witch hunt. This is not proof that the president did anything wrong. This is proof that the president may have had a moron working for him.
All right, well, Judge Andrew Napolitano disagrees. He sees it differently. Roger, let me say, I see it much the way you do, but Judge Andrew Napolitano says Trump and Cohen might have engaged in a civil and criminal fraud. Pretty hard-hitting commentary. Do you think that tape indicates anything improper was talked about? Look, I come out of law enforcement. I was NYPD. I can't find, my opinion, I can't find anything improper on that tape. Judge Napolitano's a smart guy. Is he right or wrong?
Well, John, I follow your Twitter feed. I know you're on these issues. You're very knowledgeable. No one has a higher regard for Judge Andrew Napolitano than I do. If I had my way, he'd be on the U.S. Supreme Court right now. And the president shares my esteem for him. The president calls him my judge. The president once told me directly, the thing I like about Andrew Napolitano is he's one guy who can make me understand the Constitution exactly, and it's simple. When he's on TV, I have to tell the other people in the room to shut the up. Said this to me on one occasion. So I think he shares our high esteem for the judge. But in this case, a muddled conversation. These guys are both trying to use euphemisms not to say anything too specific. I don't think it proves anything. I would have to listen to it several times. I listened to it here on the show. I listened to it previously. I don't see it, other than the fact that I do think it is outrageous that Cohen's position as an attorney was breached so easily by the Office of Special Counsel. I have no idea what he may have done for the president or not done. I do know he was bitter about not being in politics. And the real story here, in all sadness, is about Michael's enormous legal fees. He's facing $5 million in legal fees. He cannot, he has no way to obtain them. He cannot get them from the Trumps or the Trump Foundation. He was never a member of the Trump campaign that was being staff members who were being investigated. A trust was set up to reimburse people like Hope Hicks for their legal interrogation, but Michael wasn't eligible. Michael has appealed to the Trump family. As much as the Trump family may or may not be sympathetic to Michael, to pay his legal fees now in this public arena would connote an appearance of an interest, of an admission of interest.
All right. So Roger, let's go to that. There's another report on CNN that Michael Cohen, we hear talk that he's going to flip, but he hasn't flipped, but that he's now saying that Donald Trump had advanced knowledge of the June meeting at Trump Tower between that Russian lawyer and Don Jr., Paul Manafort, and Jared Kushner. Don Jr. said he never told his dad about the meeting, the president about the meeting. Cohen is saying otherwise. Who should we believe, Michael Cohen or the Trumps?
Well, I mean, that's exactly the problem here. Without anybody taking care of his legal fees, he falls into the clutches of Lanny Davis and the Clinton machine. And now they're trying to use Michael as an instrument to torture Donald Trump. I believe the president. I believe Don Jr. But what's more outrageous about this whole thing is the fact that we're talking about the meeting Don Jr. had as if he did something illegal. But we're not addressing the fact that the woman who came to see him, the woman Russian lawyer, appears in the country with a visa that we're still not told how it was approved. She was denied a visa to come here as an attorney for a legal matter pending in New York City. She meets with Glenn Simpson's GPS fusion head before and after the White House, the Trump Tower meeting. I call that briefing debriefing, and we're not supposed to. And the meeting is perfectly legal. Don Jr. does nothing illegal. He's disappointed that there's no information. He pays for nothing. He gets nothing of value. He's done nothing wrong. In the heat of a political campaign, if somebody comes to you through someone you know, because Don Jr. was approached by an English entrepreneur he had worked with who said, this guy who's coming to see you is real. You think you're going to get something of value in the meeting. You get nothing. It's a setup to say you had the meeting. I think that's clearer and clearer. So that part of it is outrageous as well. So the president is being criticized for his remembrance of a meeting that was perfectly legal, but the left wants to turn into World War III. Don Jr. met with somebody sent in to set him up who happened to be a Russian. Yes, that is correct. You know?
All right, Roger. Well, Rudy Giuliani seems to agree with you. He's calling Michael Cohen a liar. Let's listen to the former mayor.
I expected something like this from Cohen. He's been lying all week. I mean, he's been lying for years. I mean, there's nobody that I know that knows him that hasn't warned me that if he's back is up against the wall, he'll lie like crazy because he's lied all his life.
So, Roger, do you agree with Rudy Giuliani? Is Michael Cohen a liar?
I apologize for that Marco Rubio moment. I have the highest possible regard for Mayor Giuliani. I think he's brought stability, ironically, to the president's campaign. But more importantly, he punches back. He's exposed the partisan exploits and excesses of Mueller and Comey. He's called Comey out on his numerous lies. I think he's been good for the president. He's pugilistic. And the president's got a legal defense and a public defense that is offensive. And the president doesn't have to tweet about these things, but of course he does. He's still his most powerful counterpuncher, as anyone who follows his Twitter will see. But I do think that in this case, he's probably getting an education. Cohen is a man who's cornered over the legal fees, cannot get help from the Trumps, although he wishes he could, can't extort them, and therefore he looks to me like he has sold himself to the left. What is Lanny Davis doing this pro bono? The lawyer representing Mr. Cohen himself, I'm told, is a fine gentleman and a very fine lawyer. So I'm glad to hear that Michael has good counsel, but who knows what he really has? If he's taped multiple conversations, who knows what they say? This is starting to sound like Watergate in that sense. But look, in any disagreement here, I'm going to agree with the president. Michael wanted to be in the campaign. The president wouldn't allow it. The candidate wouldn't allow it. Michael had a very bad interview in which he said a man cannot rape his wife when Ivana Trump's trumped up, phony, by her own admission, divorce proceedings leaked.
Hey, Roger, we have to go to a quick break. I want to pick this up on the other side of that break with you. We're going to have more with Roger Stone, legendary political advisor to 3 presidents, including Donald Trump. Stick around. Welcome back. Still with me is famed political strategist Roger Stone. Roger has been a political advisor to Donald Trump and an advisor to 2 other presidents. He's also a best-selling author. Roger's book, Stone's Rules, tell you how to be your own Roger Stone. So, Roger, before the break, we're talking about Michael Cohen and Rudy Giuliani. I want to ask you a question about Cohen. Now, let's say Cohen does decide to cooperate. I'm skeptical. We've been hearing that Cohen is flipping, but they haven't even charged him with anything yet. If he were to cooperate, is there anything he could possibly know about the Russia scandal, if there even is a Russia scandal, or any other Trump business that could potentially be dangerous to the president?
Well, not that I'm personally aware of. I don't think there is any Russian collusion. Emails between Michael and a Russian business associate, Felix Sater, which I only read about, are just show Michael pretending to have more influence than he ever really had. There is no Russian collusion. Russian collusion is a distraction from what the Democrats did under the Obama Justice Department and the Obama FBI, essentially conjuring up a phony dossier, which came from Hillary Clinton, and using it, including lying to a judge about it, as a rationale to get illegal, unconstitutional FISA warrants on Carter Page, Paul Manafort, and most likely Roger Stone. My legal battle with the government over that warrant has just begun. So that's a crime bigger than Watergate. That's the abuse of power that uses the power, the authority, the technological capability of the state to spy on the Republican candidate for president and infiltrate his campaign.
Well, Roger, including this program, you have been in the news quite a bit yourself lately, and you suggested very clearly that you might be indicted by Robert Mueller, the special counsel. Do you still think it's possible? And if so, what did you do?
Well, actually, that's not quite what I said. What I indicated, though, was that I could be framed. There's no question about that. This is an all-powerful federal prosecutor. There is no evidence of Russian collusion. There is no evidence of collaboration with WikiLeaks. That's a left-wing conspiracy theory. I received nothing from Guccifer II. That's a canard as well. I have no advanced knowledge of the release of John Podesta's incredibly devastating and incriminating emails. There's no evidence of any of those things. Those are articles of the left and HuffPo and some of these, and the Daily Beast and these other snooty left-wing sites, but it has no foundation in truth. Now, that having said that, could the government conjure up some other offense against me, some tax matter, some political matter, some business matter, some personal matter? Of course they can. They can indict a ham sandwich. I'm not interested in being Mr. Mueller's lunch. If you've seen,
Roger, to that end, I have to ask you: Have you been interviewed by the FBI or brought before the grand jury by Mueller or relating to Mueller's investigation?
No, I have not. If I was, you would know immediately. Some liberal commentators say, well, that's indicative of an imminent indictment. No, it's indicative of nothing particular. There is no Russian collusion. There is no WikiLeaks collaboration. There is no other crime. But could they charge me with some other offense they dig up? Remember, I'm now under a microscope where they've going through every molecule of my being, asking my associates and friends personal questions that have nothing to do with Russia, that are, just far afield. How's his relationship with his wife? How is his relationship with his family or his children? Who are his clients? Where does he get his money from? Does he smoke marijuana? How about, does he like women? Does he like boys? Does he, where does he bank? I mean, it's all these intimidation tactics that have nothing to do with Russian collusion and nobody else's business, that are offensive, if you ask me. So it's ham-handed, but there's no formal indictment. Is just the harassment of people who have the unfortunate experience of having worked for me. I can tell you what my crime is right now. I supported Donald Trump president.
What's that? I didn't hear that.
I supported Donald Trump for president. That is my crime.
All right, Roger, last question. I've got to know, we've got a minute left. Let's say Mueller did indict you, or the Department of Justice did indict you, and the president didn't pardon you. Would you ever cooperate as a witness for the government against Donald Trump?
First of all, I generally speaking don't answer hypothetical questions. But because this is Newsmax and because I'm a fan of yours, John, I'm going to answer. If the government thinks that they can make up some crime and squeeze me to testify against the president, that is not going to happen.
Roger Stone, longtime political advisor to Donald Trump and many other U.S. presidents, well, several other U.S. presidents. His new book, Stone's Rules, is all over the bestseller list. I highly recommend it. It's available at bookstores and Amazon. Be sure to get yourself a copy right now. Roger, as always, my friend, a pleasure. Thanks for being here.
Great to be here. Many thanks.
Take care. All right, coming up, we've got some good news. sad news, but good news. Remains of fallen soldiers from the Korean War have been returned to the United States. We're going to discuss how important this is to the families who lost loved ones in that war and how big of a win this is for the administration when we come back.